Hey guys, I hope you're doing well for today. Today we're going to be looking at chapter 5, section 5, looking at the calamities in Europe, meaning the different difficulties that they had in Europe, the calamities at this time. The first was the Great Famine of 1315. It struck a large-scale area of Europe, began with heavy and frequent rains over much of Europe starting in 1315. And a lot of rain caused rotting crops. It caused a lack of salt to be able to preserve meat. And then once the producers of salt needed dry water to extract it from salt water through evaporation. So meat spoiled. As a result, the price for food and salt became too high for the vast majority of the people. So people began to slaughter their farm animals for food and to eat their seed grain. When they did that, they no longer had seed to be able to plant more crops and didn't have any more livestock to be able to carry on the herd. Somewhere between 10 and 25% of the people died of starvation or illness between 1315 and 1322. Then we have the 100 Years' War. Between 1337 and 1453, England and France fought a series of battles to settle the issue of English control of land in France. It became known as the 100 Years' War. The French had steadily taken land away from the English for many years. The death of the last Capitan king made a male heir without a male heir led to a crisis. The English king, Edward III, was related to the French royal line through his mother and claimed the right to the French throne. However, the French nobles rejected this claim and selected Philip VI of the House of Valois as king. War was to be expected. This series of battles began as a contest between feudal nobles and ended as a rivalry between two emerging nations. English forces started the war by crossing the English Channel. The English were outnumbered, but they were quickly able to win several key battles. The French finally rallied to victory under the leadership of a peasant girl named Joan of Arc. She believed that God was telling her to drive out the English. Desperate for a leader, the French followed her and defeated the English. The English were able to capture her and burned her at the stake. They believed because she proclaimed to be hearing from God that she was actually a witch. So they burned her at the stake. Her example strengthened the French to emerge as victors. Then the Black Death. Historians differ on how the plague known as the Black Death originated was spread. There's no doubt that something similar to the bubonic plague killed millions of people throughout the world. The plague may have begun in China and was spread by the trade ships to Europe by 1347. Rats and their fleas have been blamed for the spread of the fatal bacteria, although opinions vary and we cannot be certain. They thought that the fleas on the rats actually carried the bacteria, and then the rats, and then they carried it on through, and that's how it spread throughout Europe. But they're not entirely certain. What is certain is that millions of people were killed by the disease. Some estimate that up to 25 million people in Europe died from the Black Death. Cities in Europe were especially vulnerable to the spread of the plague for several reasons. Open sewers and improper disposal of trash made the cities unsanitary. Rats and fleas thrived in the cities. Houses were also often close together and the people lived in crowded settings. These unhealthy conditions provided a breeding ground for disease and its spread. So we're going to look at some of the consequences of the Black Death. There was a high death toll. Some people lost faith in the Roman Church. They prayed and asked the Roman Church to be able to help stop the plague, and they weren't able to do so. There was a high crime rate. The wealthy left the cities and lived on secluded estates in order to avoid contact with the plague. Others gave themselves over to sinful living since they decided that death was imminent anyway, and crime became a problem. Anti-Semitism, which is persecution against the Jews. if the Jews were blamed for the disease, as we talked about in the previous section. And thousands of Jews died as people slaughtered whole Jewish communities for their imagined crime. By 1350, the Black Death has run its course, but it took many years for Europe to recover. All right, so we're going to stop here. This is the end of our section for today. So you've got some work to do. Ms. Wise has all that information for you. And then tomorrow you'll be doing your review for your Chapter 5 test. Chapter 5 test on Wednesday. So don't forget to be studying your quizzes. Code is on the board. Email went out to your parents. I hope you are listening and being hey for Ms. Wise. We've talked several times, and I know you talked to the other sixth grade class about the Black Death game. This is something that we'll play when I return. Okay, it's a little hard to explain, so I didn't want to throw that off on Ms. Wise. So we'll play it whenever I return. Okay, guys. All right, thanks, and y'all have a good rest of your day.